What is it that keeps the fires burning in your photographic engine room? In this video, I hope to explore the question by examining my own sources of inspiration. Somehow, I ended up watching a bunch of off-grid videos a while back. You know how it is. You watch one video on a certain theme, and the next thing you know, the YouTube algorithm has corralled you into watching hours of related content. I wish YouTube would do that more for my channel, but I guess my content isn't as interesting as an attractive young couple raising goats in the Amazon. These young idealists do remind me of my youth though, when I and a bunch of back-to-the-landers were raising pigs and Kootenai Green, deep in the Purcell Mountains of British Columbia. But we didn't have the internet, or electricity for that matter. Still, and I've mentioned this before, arguably that's where I got serious about photography, when one of my fellow bush hippies, a refugee from New Zealand, gifted me his Russian Zenit camera as part of his decision to free himself from the seductions of Maya. Now, I never did meet Maya, but I have her to thank for arranging fate so that I'd spend the rest of my life searching for the perfect camera. I know, if anything's an illusion, that is. That Zenit recorded scenes from a number of climbing trips and city life until its cloth shutter froze and died. But before it succumbed, I took it and a cine camera to Mount St. Helens. You know, that volcano that famously erupted in 1980, in fact 44 years ago today. In this video, I hope to tie these loose ends together into a coherent story. Wish me luck, and please do come along for the ride. Or climb. Hi, Ray here. Mount St. Helens is one of a string of peaks in the 700-mile, 1,100-kilometer-long Cascade Volcanic Arc, as it's called, stretching from southern British Columbia all the way down to northern California, which is itself part of the vast Pacific Ring of Fire. Here in BC, we have Garibaldi, Ring Peak, and many, many others. Mount Baker, aka Comaculchan in Washington, Rainier, and St. Helens, and in Oregon, Mount Hood, and so on. In the spring of 1979, some climbing buddies and I took a trip down to southern Washington, south of our homes, in Vancouver, BC that is, with the intention of climbing St. Helens. But before we even got near our objective, we ran into a wee bit of a problem. You see, that year, 1979, was the year of the so-called oil shock tied to events in Iran. And it was a shock that brought home what fuel shortages meant for our happy middle-class life in North America. Our little tribe of climbing vagabonds were trapped for hours in a gas station queue. Luckily, we had yet to buy enough junk food and other essentials for our attempt on the mountain. So we were able to invest otherwise wasted time stocking up on supplies, and ultimately we were also lucky to reach the pumps before the gas ran out. Which brings me back to the YouTube neo-hippies, though they'd likely resent that label. This one couple in Panama, I guess things have settled down since Manuel Noriega got on the wrong side of the George H.W. Bush administration back in, what was that, 1990? But not quite. There's civil unrest due to the usual stuff: corruption in high places, some eat cake while others get the caviar. I covered a few similar uprisings during my photojournalist days. Amazing though, isn't it? As long as there's internet access, that we can share our stories on this platform and sell some bespoke coffee on the side. So in this aforementioned video, the young homesteader, seems like a nice guy, goes to town in his pickup truck to get some gas, only to be confronted by a huge line of similar vehicles stretching blocks and blocks into the sunset. I never dreamt there'd be so many big, new, shiny vehicles in Central America, but what do I know? I've never been there. The gasoline search proved fruitless, so back up to El Rancho, wife and baby. I do hope they prosper. It's a scary world out there. So what would it mean for you? Or should I say, what does it mean to you when things get tight as far as fuel? gas stations ran out of fuel here not too long ago. And I've paid up to $2.50 a liter. That's $9.45 a gallon for the diesel, our little Heidi drinks, in moderation, I should say, to take us on our journeys. So I think this is maybe where I'm going with this ramble, at least partly. I mean to say, mountaineering has often provided a metaphor for meeting the challenges of life in general, as Miley Cyrus reminded us. No, not with Wrecking Ball. So as an aside, I think subterranean energy may be the answer to some of our core problems for our civilization, geothermally speaking. And similarly, I think a lot of what we long for and try to find outside of ourselves can be found within. That couple in Central America. Fossil fuel scarcity, whatever the degree of their off-grid development is, well, it impacts their utopian ideals. They can't escape that reality, or haven't, as we couldn't in our hippie back-to-the-land experiment in the 70s. My present lifestyle depends on Heidi and her diesel habit. It's costing me a lot more to transport me and my gear to remote jobs. Providing content for this channel is costing more as a result. We didn't reach the summit of Mount St. Helens. I woke up at 1 a.m., the allotted time to start getting ready. It takes a lot of time to prepare, make breakfast, get dressed, strap on the crampons, check everything 3 times, maybe 4 times. I remember about 1:30, a long stream of Mazamas, an Oregon mountaineering club, trudged by our base camp, lighting up the glacier with their headlamps. Oh my God, we mumbled, too many people. It looked like something that you'd see today on the Hillary Step on Everest. And us Canadians, we were kind of spoiled. We were used to having a whole mountain to ourselves. Incidentally, those days are gone on this side of the border too. Anyway, I reached over, still in my mummy bag, to drop tea bags into the billy that was bubbling on the tiny stove, and my back went into total spasm. I was completely immobilized and in excruciating pain. Long story short, my buddies had to carry me off the mountain, load me into the back of the station wagon, making a kind of backboard to immobilize me with packs and other gear, drive me back to BC and Vancouver General Hospital. I'd never had any back problems before, or since really. That was Saturday, May 20th, 1979. On May 18th, 1980, at 8:32:11 a.m. precisely, St. Helens literally blew its top. I was in bed in my basement suite in White Rock, BC, a border town about 380 kilometers away, when I was awakened by a loud whoop. I thought a runaway truck had hit the side of the house. That happened occasionally in hilly White Rock. My upstairs landlords commiserated. What the hell was that? We soon found out from the news. It was really a tragic event. About 57 people were killed, perhaps more, who were never found. Damage totaling $3.6 billion in today's dollars. Highways, railways, homes and businesses. Of course, hundreds of square kilometers of devastation to surrounding forests, lakes and rivers. The plume of ash rose 80,000 feet, 24 kilometers, into the sky, blanketed 11 US states and made it all the way to us here in BC. I have a relative who lived in Oregon at the time. She was camping nearby when it erupted. She and her friends escaped with their lives. Quite a story. Was that really 44 years ago? Seems like yesterday when I reminisce. Certainly one of the craziest events of my lifetime, especially considering the strange serendipity that put me on the mountain, sort of against my will, as I recorded in my journal, almost exactly a year before. Well, if there is a theme to this video, I guess it comes down to the fact that ultimately we never know where any journey will lead, really. But nothing comes of standing by, because your destiny isn't to be found in an armchair, I hope, at least not until you're older than me. I'm reminded of one of my favorite quotes, actually found in a classic of mountaineering literature, Everest West Ridge by Tom Hornbean. And if you thought that this video didn't have enough asides, I must mention Jim Harrington, a brilliant photographer who's photographed many, many musical icons, celebrities, and whose book, The Climbers, is itself an example of dedication to a project spanning 20 years. Jim phoned me a couple of years back to ask my advice about rag printing papers. Anyway, Tom Hornbein is one of the famous climbers Jim photographed for his book, wearing the oxygen mask that he used on the Everest climb, which is appropriate since Dr. Hornbein was responsible for the oxygen equipment on that expedition. It's a great shot. Many thanks to Jim for sending along a high-resolution image for this video. I'll include a link or two to his work in the description. But back to Hornbein's book. There's a lot of great quotes in this account of the 1963 American ascent of the Great West Ridge of Everest, illustrated, I should mention, by many of his beautiful photos, which were a great inspiration to me at the beginning of my modest climbing and photography careers, when the mountains were my photo fuel. But the quote that really sticks with me is an observation by W.H. Murray about the power of commitment, how taking the first step in any initiative or creative endeavor seems to set in motion a whole series of timely events. Murray's meditation ends with words from Goethe. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Well, this might go down in history of my YouTube channel, at least, as one of the more wandering tales that I've told, but I hope it led to some useful ideas. If it made any sense to you, please do give it the old thumbs up. It really helps build the channel. And if this is your first time here and you enjoyed what you found, please feel free to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. My content isn't all this weird. Until the next time, take care, cheers. We'll see you later.